So in the last video, I talked a bit about children and love. Now I would like to talk about relationships. And again, a lot of this is based on Bell Hooks' book, All About Love, but also my readings from many of her books that talk about love. And so many of us are used to the idea that children who grow up in loveless homes grow up to mimic those relationships as adults in their friendships, but also romantic relationships. And I think that there are a couple of things that we need to reformulate our thinking, reset our thinking about love. Romantic love is not the only kind of love, not the only side of affection that we have, that we need, that we can cultivate. And the other thing is that love can be cultivated. In fact, it must be cultivated. Love is not just a feeling, but it is a doing. There are actions that actions, intents, all of these things all together can cultivate love. Bell Hooks talks about ingredients of love: care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, trust, open and honest communication. These are things that can occur between friends, between parents and children, between siblings. In fact, one would argue that they must. In order for there to be genuine love, and not just care. I think that care can certainly be confused with love. Care can be settled for, and many people do settle for care in doing and actions that simulate love, but they're not really love. I mean, love is very complete, and we often feel a lack, and people talk about self-help books and romance novels and all the ways that our culture seems obsessed with romantic love and abandonment. So you can listen to, an album, a pop star singing about love. They'll have one or two songs about love gone good, and then the rest will be love gone bad. And I think this really does come from our culture of dysfunctional families that do a lot of doing, giving, spoiling, but not really doing a lot of the work of caring. And it's risky. It is risky. I'll give you some of the examples that Bell Hooks gives that I found it to be very interesting. So Bell Hooks says that in her own life, she gives the example of, by choosing men who were not interested in being loving, I was able to practice giving love, but always within an unfulfilling context. Naturally, my need to receive love was not met. I got what I was accustomed to getting, care and affection, usually mingled with a degree of unkindness, neglect, and, on some occasions, outright cruelty. At times, I was unkind. It took me a long time to recognize that while I wanted to know love, I was afraid to be truly intimate. And I think that many of us in our relationships really do settle for semblances of care and affection, semblances of love, when what we really want is love. Some of us, she goes on to say, long for love but lack the courage to take risks. Even though we are obsessed with the idea of love, and again, something you see throughout our pop culture, the truth is that most of us live in relatively decent, somewhat satisfying lives, even if we often feel that love is lacking. In these relationships, we share genuine affection and or care. And there can be a great deal of affection, a great deal of care and doing. But for most of us, that feels like it's enough, because it is usually a lot more than we received in our families of origin. And so relative to what we had at home, we get in our relationships. We get someone who hugs us and cuddles us and touches us, all the things that we may have wanted at home and we didn't get. But still, this is not love. We are willing to settle for strategies that help ease the pain and increase the peace, pleasure, and playfulness in existing relationships, particularly romantic ones. So we're willing to settle for the so-called romantic dates, the expensive holidays, the getaways, the things that help us get away from our lives and help us not think about our true lack. And I think that shopping and different forms of addiction are one of the major ways that Americans in particular, and we see that we're exporting this, do the work of escape from our loveless culture. And so we need to really think about what is love. Of course, some concrete things that people can do right now. Talk about it. Think about it. Really mull through it in your head with your partners, with your friends, with your children, with your parents. What is love? What does it feel like? What does it do? And when I talked in the beginning about cultivating love, another thing from bell hooks. To think of actions as shaping feelings is one way we rid ourselves of conventionally accepted assumptions such as that parents love their children or that one simply falls in love without exercising will or choice. That there are such things as crimes of passion, i.e., he killed her because he loved her so much. When we are loving, we openly and honestly express care, affection, responsibility, respect, commitment, and trust. Many things that you hear people longing for. And again, this is something you hear in our pop culture all the time, which is why I think it resonates so well, which is why it sells so well. But we have to start to define what is love. We need a working definition, just as you would have a working definition if you were at work. What is a finished job? What is a completed project? What is this that we're trying to accomplish? Well, start with a working definition. Have the discussion, because it can emerge. You can grow love, but you can't just sort of expect for it to happen out of nowhere. So you have to create a map for yourself of love. You also have to be willing to accept that we may have come from environments that weren't so full of love, which again takes courage. It doesn't mean that you don't love your family, that you don't care for your family, that you never felt love, instances of love. But it does mean that we have to acknowledge that there are instances of abuse, coercion, of just out-and-out lovelessness, in order to find the courage to do something. Again, I invite your questions, and I hope that you read Bell Hooks' books, because she's been instrumental in teaching me a great deal, as has my own family been, about love.
Si tu savais à quel point j'ai de l'affection pour toi, à qui tu n'aurais pas dû me faire ça.